I was looking at my phone and I noticed that there's this thing right at the base of the settings. I was looking at the auto lock settings, and I'll even just read it because I don't want to misread what it says, but I thought this was fascinating. It says, attention is detected when you are looking at the screen. When attention is detected, iPhone does not dim the display. And I thought that was fascinating because, like, I think fairly often I'll be like watching somebody's stories or something, like somebody posts something and you're in the middle of watching it, and then your phone just like literally turns off. And I always just thought that was because the auto lock setting had hit its timer, but apparently it's supposed to stay on. So that makes me wonder, does that mean that it knows that I'm not interested in what I'm watching and it just turns off? I mean, which is fantastic because most the situations like that, I need to probably be doing something else aside from looking at my phone. I just thought it was fascinating that it'll just turn off because, like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm like in the middle of watching a video or looking at a photo and then it just turns off all of a sudden. And again, I thought it was because of the timer, but I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one. That has that situation going on. It could. My second thought was just maybe the technology is not fully there yet. You know what I mean? Like, it does have detection, but maybe it's just not always. I almost trust it more to know that I'm paying attention rather than to trust that I'm interested in what I'm watching. So I'd be curious. I was just had this thing that happened at work. Like, I was going to start recording before this, but then like I was talking to this gal, and it's like a weekend, and I had already visited their property. Basically, she works at like a community club, right? So it's a building that has a board. She's just one of the members on the board, and we're offering to do a construction project for her. So she has a old wooden roof that was put on in the 1940s, and she has metal roof over the top of that. Years ago, somebody from our company took out the small screws that had been installed to put those metal panels on and put in larger screws. They're extremely fat. I want to say they're 3.5 inches long. They could be longer. The point is, there's no further repair that we can offer. These panels started to rip off the other day, so this is like nobody gives a shit. But the idea is they started flying off, and so they want a solution. And so I was like, yeah, it's not going to be something, unfortunately, that I can offer to redo as is. I would love to offer a temporary solution, and that temporary solution would be only under the conditions that we have a contract to move forward for a long-term solution to completely remove the roof and install it completely. And she said, we don't have any money for that. And I was like, well, I really am sorry to hear about that. The insurance was there at that time, and the insurance adjuster said there would be another 2 weeks before they'd be able to give any information. So basically, we don't know what their verdict is going to be. And again, it's coming up. It's Friday. And so oftentimes it's tough to kind of get stuff done, but they're saying, hey, we're not ready to move into a contract yet. We don't want to sign anything. They have a metal roof on, as I mentioned. I offered a asphalt roof, so like a normal shingle roof, as like a lower cost option, just in the case that they wanted to find something that was a little more cost effective, and then they'd be able to maybe afford that a little bit easier. But again, they don't know for another 2 weeks what the insurance is going to be able to do, if anything, in order to help. Because it's a building, it's like right around Thanksgiving right now. So for instance, they have a board that needs to meet to make any decisions, and so that board doesn't have the ability to meet immediately since it's near Thanksgiving again, as I mentioned. And so they're not comfortable signing any bids or signing anything that says that they want to move forward, but they'd like me on this Friday to mobilize a crew. And so I told them, and again, I shouldn't say again, I've never said this before. Years ago, my customer service response would have been, of course, we're sending somebody out. We're going to take care of you right away. I want you to be comfortable with, the possibility that your roof's not going to leak. You're not going to get any water in there, even though you're not comfortable with signing a bid. Well, years have gone by, and unfortunately, there's been situations where I have somebody sign a bid. So, for instance, it's like, these are all the things that I'm going to do for you. They sign it. One time I even went back because they had to pick their color, and so they signed it again on that date because I was like, would you mind signing this just so, for instance, when you're making a change on a bid or something like that that's typed, we signed it again. So, for instance, they had signed this twice, and then they come back and they say, hey, I actually wanted you to do this list of stuff over here, which was not listed on the bid. It's not what we discussed. It's not anything. And so that's, of course, just one situation, and it's very rare that those are the situations. But my point in saying that is sometimes people don't make the right decision and they don't do the right thing. So then, unfortunately, with the way it works at my company, I would be left holding the responsibility there. I would have been the one. So the point in saying all this is, I called, I called one of our general manager, and what's really funny about saying that, I accidentally called her the office manager over the phone, and I know that she's a general manager, and I was thinking, like, Jesus, I did not mean to offend her in any way. I wasn't trying to bother her. I wasn't trying to hurt her feelings. You know what I mean? When somebody has a title, you want to at least acknowledge what their title is, who they are, what they're doing, because sometimes that's really important. On a personal basis, I do not care. It's like, you know what I mean? Thanks for the new title. The idea is, unfortunately, too many times in my past, and I'm going to get off on a tangent and then forget what I was talking about, and I already forgot what I was talking about, so it doesn't matter. But the issue I found is that now I don't remember what I'm talking about at all. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I got that going on for me. So that's funny. I just completely lost it. That's okay. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, the people at work. Yeah. Well, anyway, I just would have loved to have helped them. The only unfortunate thing is like, if I can't get you to sign any bid that says you want us to do any sort of work, but you do want us to mobilize a crew, and so that's where I was like, I called and tried to see, like, hey, is there anything we can do to make this change? And she was like, honestly, I think you made the right decision. There, no matter what, that roof needs to be replaced. So even if they didn't decide to go with us, somebody's going to have to replace it. So why wouldn't they just at least put something into agreement? You know what I mean? And so it's like, I understand that they don't have anybody, but like I said, it's those times where you do unfortunately get burned, and there's people that stop answering their phones and they owe you thousands of dollars, or they owe you some sort of money. And then, especially in a situation, if you don't have anything in writing, I mean, again, I've had it the opposite, where I have something in writing, even something they've signed on multiple different occasions, multiple different dates, and people will still try to squirm their way out of it. And so it just makes you feel bad, because then here there's people that really need help, and you want to be able to do something, but there's too often somebody that's going to do the wrong thing, and so you can't just put yourself out there and put yourself liable. Because, for instance, as I mentioned to her, if they decide not to do anything, and she even stated, she's like, we don't have any money, and it's like, that's one of my biggest things. Like, I don't think there's many businesses that just deal with that as much as we do. And I think it's just, of course, you know what I mean? I'm not here to complain, and I'm so happy that we're able to go out and give estimates, and we're able to talk to people. But in our business, you do this thing where you say, hey, we're going to give free estimates, because that way you have the opportunity to meet people. You have the opportunity to find out what they have going on and see if you can offer a solution. And hopefully your charisma and your personality will allow you to win the bid, right? Well, then you... I guess it's just like I said, if they decide not to sign it, it doesn't leave you with a lot of options. It doesn't leave you with a lot of things to say, like, here's how we're going to help you, and here's how we're going to be able to solve this, especially later if they owe you money and then they're not going to help out. And so then the people down the road that really may need you, and it's like, if you never got burned, you'd be able to do that. But I don't know, it's really neither here nor there, so I'm going to leave that alone. But honestly, I heard something like at the door nearby, and so I don't remember what I was talking about at all. I totally lost my train of thought, and so I just kind of steered off to the side there and didn't know where we were gonna go. You know what's another time I just like completely lose direction? I, like, for instance, this year, as I mentioned, it's like near, and I apologize for clearing my throat, but it's near Thanksgiving at this point, and we, I would say with the 11 months, I've drank under 10 times. So, for instance, I had some drinks on my birthday when my mom had taken me out, and that's a whole different story in itself, just in the sense that like she had taken me to this restaurant and she had reservations, and again, that's a super nice thing to do, and that's such a thoughtful thing to say, hey, I want to take you out and I want to spend some money, and you know what I mean, go out in the world with you and your son, and you know what I mean, have a nice meal. And I called her and I was like, hey, because the particular restaurant that she picked is not something I'm super interested in, and it's also extremely expensive. Like, for instance, each course is like easily $100, and it's because it's like a fondue restaurant. And I told her, I'm like, I don't really care about that. That's not really my thing. So I don't necessarily need to. I was thinking maybe I just move this. I mean, I know that's super annoying and loud and everything, but it's like I notice I keep just like moving my face over here. So if I'm gonna move my face, why don't we just move the mic? That'd probably be easier. But I need like some sort of medicine to keep me focused. This is ridiculous. I lost my train of thought again, but it doesn't matter. Holy moly, that's insanity. Yeah, I think again, I just was saying I lose my sense of direction here and there. Oh yeah, my mom, she had invited me right for my birthday. She invited me to go to a restaurant, and so like I called her and I was like, hey, this is going to be super expensive. I feel like we could literally go anywhere and the bill's going to be a fraction of the price. And so I was like, maybe I can find a place that would be cool and would be more in something I'm interested in. And she goes, yeah, let me know what you find out. And so I went and I looked and I found there was this place that had like really, I mean, I don't know what the way to describe it. It was like a whiskey steak place, which sounded really cool. And so I was like, I've never got something like that. I was like, that sounds like an interesting evening, but we weren't able to get a reservation until like an hour later. And so she was like, nah, I'm not interested in that. So she ends up spending like, again, easily $100 per person per the course. And then if you end up giving even a 25% tip, that's an extra $100. So you're literally looking at $500, which to me, no matter if the extra reservation was an hour later, I just can't fathom spending that. And I'm just, again, the whole thing you're paying for is the experience, which if you're not really into fondue, I just thought that was the weirdest thing, in the sense where it was like, I didn't even want to say anything. I was super weird about like talking to her about it. I was like, I feel like, because for some reason I talk in a different voice when it's a different day. No, I was like, I feel like I shouldn't be making a big deal about this, but it is my birthday, so like, shouldn't I at least get to pick where we're going? And then she was like, we can reschedule it for another day. And unfortunately, I know with my mom, that means that it just wouldn't happen. So I was like, all right, see you at 6. And we went, and I don't know how that related to anything. Oh, I do. Then that evening, we were in the car, and she had these 2 little like airplane bottles of wine. And so I haven't drank in forever. Literally, it gives me a headache almost immediately when it happens. And I'm not trying to be cool. I think it's just, it's funny. I heard Ron White say the other day that he's like, I just had all mine. He's like, you get a certain amount, and I had mine before everybody. And sometimes I feel that way as well. But point being, I don't have it very often, because I'll get a headache like immediately. And so one thing that I noticed is like I lose any sense of discipline that I had whatsoever. Like anything that I was like moving towards, like I could literally have weeks and weeks and weeks, you know what I mean? Before that, I think it was a vacation that we'd went on, so I don't necessarily remember exactly how long that was, but I have like a thimbleful of alcohol, and then I am like immediately like, we should eat fried food. Like, I think I'd like to eat some French fries. Like, we should stop by. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I asked or anything, but like literally, I immediately want to, for some reason, go to like eat fast food. And it's funny because that's literally like the worst time that you should even do that, right? Like, if you're going to spend any of your immunity and health and just completely deplete it by drinking alcohol, the last thing you should put on top of it is eating, completely terrible fast food. But I swear, I just have this like immediate sense that like once I have something bad, I just want to, and I think that's it too. It's like you feel like, hey, I've already made a bad decision, so you know what I mean? I can make another one, and it's not like it's going to hurt anymore. And then I'm sure there's more to it. I'm sure there's a lot more to it, especially after you've like had a sip of alcohol. But I just feel like at least 70% of my discipline is gone, right? So like if I had 100 discipline points, I have 30 discipline points after I've had a thimbleful of alcohol. And I just think that is got to be one of the most fascinating things, which can be helpful, right? I guess as they say as a social lubricant, or as a, I don't know, probably many things that have been disproven. But I was just curious if anybody else, like, do you lose your sense of direction? Like, do you just, so you had plans, and then, you know what I mean? I had these friends. I was fortunate enough to have a friend that got me a job. I was actually working at another roofing company years ago, and that would have been when I would have made the customer service choice and just been like, we're going to help you right away. I'll be there immediately. I don't care how we're going to get paid. And then you find all these times where people don't pay. But I was lucky enough to get a job with one of my friends. I was doing some plumbing work. And so why was I going to talk about that? They, after work, right? So like you get there really early, and they always wanted to ride together. So for instance, they would feel like I didn't have any excuse, but we would all carpool up there, and we would go to like, whatever job site it was and work all day. And if you get there at like 6:30, unfortunately it gets to a point where like if a crew gets so large, the boss doesn't necessarily want to pay a whole group of people to work more than 40 hours a week. And I know that sounds crazy, but I guess it just depends on how much demand there is and how much work they have going on and things like that. But we, for instance, just had, a boss that was like, yeah, I want you guys to work 40 hours. So if we start at 6, we're done at 2 in the afternoon. And so they would always pressure me. They'd be like, hey, drink, you know what I mean? Like, have some beers with me. Like, why don't you just have some beers? Who cares? You're not driving. It's not like you need to, worry about anything. And I will take a fucking nap. Like, I will sleep. I will want to go to bed. And, that's another example. So first I start by depleting any health and immunity and anything I had going with the alcohol, and then on top of that I'll have some sort of fast food, and then I need a nap. It's like the domino effect that occurs after that one decision is made is incredible. I can't even believe it, really. It's even one of those things that if you decide to stay awake, it can be even worse. And it's amazing. Like you'll have in your sane, fully coherent life, you'll be like, oh, that was the worst decision I've ever made. I lost 10 years of my life. If it weren't for my kids, can't imagine making that decision ever again, and I would never go down that road ever again, and I can't believe the time I lost. And then you have some alcohol, and you're like texting your ex, like, hey, what, I don't get it. I don't understand. There is some sort. I think, as I said, I don't know if I had any sort of theory, but it almost seems like it's like because you have the excuse, right? Because you can just be like, well, I was drinking, right? So then it's like you almost feel like you have this pass to say that you were, able to do something that say you shouldn't have done otherwise. But I don't know. I could just be off base there. But speaking of of discipline, my son, oh man, he's got this he came home from school the other day, and he said that, some parents, they delete their kids' YouTube channels because that's a story in itself. And I don't know if I talked about it last time, but oh my goodness, just trying to make a Google account for my kid had to be the hardest thing I've ever tried to do in my life. I have no idea why. Like, for instance, I just went in there, and they're intelligent enough to be able to say, hey, is this for you? Or are you doing this for a business? Or is this for your child? And, I was like, I don't necessarily want to go through all the parental controls and all that, but I was like, okay, yeah, it's for my child. I was like, and I put in his birthday and put in his information, and I was like, yeah, it is for his child. Well, then I want to be able to get him to use the apps and stuff. So I just opened it to like see how it works. Well, once you hit, it's funny, he calls it the waffle, you know what I mean? The little thing at the top, and that may be the technical term, and I'm just a moron, but he calls it the waffle, and I think it's the cutest thing in the world. So he says, once you click the waffle, like none of the normal apps show up. So I'm like, okay, you gotta be kidding me. Like I put in a child one, and now the app setup is different, which just seems silly because I'm like, I have two different ones. I have a work one and I have my personal one, and neither one of them are different. Like they have the exact same setup. If I want to go to Maps, Maps is there. If I want to go to YouTube, YouTube is there. And to be perfectly honest, I was trying to get it set up for him to do YouTube so eventually he can post to YouTube and have a separate channel of his own. And I was like, I feel like he can only do that because I personally do that through a Google account. So I tried to set him up a Google account, and it was like the most. So then he can't get into YouTube, and then so I tried to sign him into YouTube in his room, but I have a desktop computer in another room, like where I consider my office. It's totally not my office. It's like the living room, and like my sister the other day even asked me, she's like, "Do you want a couch?" And she's like, "I know you don't have one." And I was like. The longest time ago, I was like, I don't use a couch. I don't sit on and just watch TV. Even when I watch TV, like my back starts to hurt, so I barely even sit down. I was like, I work out and I work. So for instance, my living room is a place where I can do work and work out. And so I don't have like a place where you can like sit down. And I have no fucking idea why I was talking about that. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's just not really a place where I can, you know what I mean, relax or the intention of that space. The funny thing is I just don't remember what my point in all that was. Oh yeah, but I have my computer out there, and so I'm looking on my computer in the living room basically, or what I consider my office, and he's in his room and he's trying to get onto his YouTube, and I'm actually trying to sign him on. So I'm out here and I'm like, hey man, will you tell me the codes? Because you know what I mean, when you're trying to sign on with a different device, but you already have your account open, it just says here, put the 6-digit code. And so the 6-digit code comes up and he's yelling it to me, and I swear, I'm like, okay, I feel like he said it to me fast enough. Like he tells me the letters, I type them in. Because like for instance, if I had to do that myself, I would have had to go into the room, I would have had to like write them down or something, take a picture of it, and then come back into this room. So in the fact that he's standing in there reading the numbers to me and then gives them to me, and I'm typing them in as exactly as he sees them, it won't work. So I can't get him to sign in. And again, the whole intention originally is just to be able to get him in so eventually maybe he can stream on there, or he can make some money doing some things that he's the cutest thing in the world. And I think he makes this video one time. He literally created, edited, produced this whole video just in the sense, like, I dropped him off at my mom's house and I had to do something, and he couldn't come with me for like this 45 minutes or whatever it was. And he literally made a video about how he was going to hide and where he was going to hide until I came back and scare me. And it was just the cutest thing in the world. And I thought, man, I almost think that his teacher even said, she's like, man, I would watch you. And I was like, I think the same thing. And so oddly enough, I was going to, that was the whole idea. But then I was like, okay, well, that didn't work. I'm just going to create him a normal one. I'm going to lie. I'm going to say it's for me. You know what I mean? So they don't know who me is. Who gives a fuck, right? So I put in, I'm like, okay, you know, my name is his name, just as it did. And then when the age came up, I even did the same birth date, but I made it to where he was like 21 years old. Google just doesn't let it. It's like, no, I'm sorry. You can't set up a Google account like this. Why? I'm like, are you kidding me? Why in the world? How do you know? How do you know that that's not a 21-year-old person named this? I mean, obviously, because I just tried it and put him as a 7-year-old. And so now you know. I just was like, it was the most frustrating thing in the world. But my thought in saying that is, he comes home and he's like, my friend says that they can't get on YouTube anymore. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I understand. I mean, even when it's like, I even feel uncomfortable. The reason I say this is because I'm curious, like, what do people do? You know what I mean? Do they allow their kids on it? Because, like, again, he says he's coming home and now he's not, one of his friends is no longer on it. I told him, I was like, you know, to be honest, buddy, if you and me lived together just by ourselves and you never went over to your mom's house, I was like, I wouldn't allow you on there either. Because I was like, just to give you an example, I allowed you a PS4 only months after he got it at his mom's house, because I know this sounds stupid, but like, for instance, every time he would come to my house, he'd be like, talking about his PS4 and talking about what video games he'd played. And I didn't allow him to get on a tablet. I didn't allow him to play video games. Sometimes I allowed him to watch TV, but I was very strict about what he would watch. As an example, like I wouldn't even let him watch Loud House at first, which now I've watched it and I don't think it's a bad show. I think honestly it's actually, and I may have said this before, but fairly progressive. It surprises me how much stuff they have in there. Like they have like there's got two dads, and like there's the kids are in like therapy. He'll be like, my therapist says this, and I'm like, wow, this show is way further ahead. So point being, I've even changed my stance on that particular show. But at the time, I was extremely strict. Like I wasn't even going to allow him, because it's weird, to the perfectly honest thing. And for somebody my age, they'd understand. The graphics reminded me of Ren and Stimpy. And I remember my parents letting me watch Ren and Stimpy as a kid. And I was just like, this is completely inappropriate. Like there's no way I should be watching this. This is not something that a kid should be looking at. And so I saw, just as a comparison, I thought Loud House by the graphics was like the exact same thing. But turns out, as I said, I've now sat in his room and listened and watched shows, and I don't think it's a bad show at all. And it's crazy because, yeah, nobody cares. I was going to say, start talking about it. But my point in saying that is, I wouldn't have even allowed him the PS4, right? So I even told him that. I was like, dude, I know your friends got their YouTube taken away, but I was like, if you weren't at your mom's with your PlayStation, I never would have bought one for you, because I actually screwed him. He probably would say years down the road that this is what's going to cause him trauma in his life or whatever, but he's got a birthday really close to Easter. So I said, and I still bought him like a basket, but the basket didn't have anything extravagant in it. It was like he got to do an egg hunt and things like that. I did your Easter and your birthday present is a new PlayStation, and I got him a PlayStation 4, and of course I got an extra controller, which I guess if you think about it, that's pretty much for me. Well, no, I guess he uses that controller because it's the extra one's like a colored one, so he uses that one. Unfortunately, it's broken, and I don't know if it came broken, but one day I was touching it and it was like, this doesn't work anymore like it should, and so I thought I saw something outside my window, but it's just really windy, and the branches are like waving in the wind, and it's like casting a shadow, which I know sounds so 1980s scary movie, but that's really what happened. And yeah, so anyway, I just eventually caved, and I was like, here's a PS4 and a new controller and some games and things like that. And it was like, just basically like the same way with Loud House. It wasn't that big of a deal. Like it was kind of, well, of course, the attention. I mean, that's where I say I'm curious to see what other people do, because, I mean, of course, now he's easily distracted for however long. And anytime he does anything wrong, if I say, I'm going to take your PlayStation away, I mean, it's detrimental. I was going to say, it's literally like you're taking a drug away from somebody, but I guess in a lot of ways, what you receive in your brain is probably similar, just on a different level of a drug, which is funny because I was like, literally, it's like an addict having their drugs taken away. It's insane. But my point in saying that is, eventually I caved and I let him have that, and I was like, I would have never done that. I would have never allowed you to have a PS4 had you not had it at his other house, but I had to level the playing field. I know it sounds so stupid, and again, it's not. I think it almost helped because now I got to see things. Like, it's funny. He was like, "You don't like when I watch Loud House," and I was like, "Dude, his mom's like, they called him the stepdad at the time, but I don't think they're together anymore. But let him watch Deadpool 2, so it was like a rated R movie, which I'm like, yeah. And then their justification was, will you let him dress up as Deadpool for Halloween? And I'm like, I think that's a little bit different. I think being able to be a character that has a children's costume that's dressed like Deadpool and then letting him watch the rated R movie. But my point in saying that is, once I finally caved on the Loud House thing, it didn't end up being that bad. And then when he finally plays PS4, I enjoy playing with him. Like, honestly, we play Minecraft. And it's funny, there's a similar story between those two things, which I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I never really knew how it was supposed to play out. I want to, what's funny? So like this camera, it will all of a sudden, like last time I was recording, within like after like 30 minutes or so, and it must be some sort of safety feature or something like that, but all of a sudden it just stops. And so it's just out. And then basically I realized it because I heard it restart. And when I heard it start, I was like, well, then when did it stop? And then, so for instance, if that happens, I'm going to have to stop down just so I can get the audio and video back on. But my son and I actually, we like to play like Minecraft and stuff, right? So like we've got into the characters, and he likes the books, like from the book fair from his school. We'll end up getting like they have the Explorer's book, which tells you like all the information, which is actually pretty cool because it tells you like where stuff is, which you never would know if you didn't have the book. Sometimes it pops up those little messages on the screen, when you, right before you play. But like, I think the in-depth stuff is really cool to learn. Like we didn't know a lot of stuff, obviously, when we first started, but the more we played, and then when we read those books and stuff. But on Halloween, I just say it's kind of connected because we were talking about video games, and then I mentioned the story about Halloween. One time on Halloween, he was like, it was actually this last year, and I didn't know how to deal with it, but I was like, I feel like the answer is no, but I'd love to hear what people think about it. So for instance, he goes, I want to be Steve for Halloween, which anybody that knows anything about Minecraft, Steve is an African-American character. So he genuinely, from his heart of hearts, is just like, I'd like to do that. And I was like, well, people can't do that anymore. And I was like, why not? And I was like, well, you're not allowed to dress up like that. And so I'm just curious, like, is that the same thing? Like, what if I'm not sure if they do, and they may or may not, like, but what if they sell a literal mask of Steve, that character? Of course his intent is never something negative, right? Which this is, nobody's probably talked about this in years, you know what I mean? I know it's been so long, but my point in saying that is, obviously, when the people that did it, like whoever it was, Jimmy Kimmel or whoever did blackface in the first place, a lot of people probably didn't mean anything negative about it when they first did it. They didn't have any negative intent. They were just doing a skit, and they didn't have anything bad. But for instance, my son clearly doesn't have any negative thought. He doesn't want to. He wants to be. That's the person. He can pick anybody, and that's the person he wants to be for Halloween. And I'm like, well, I know we can't dress you up like that, because I'm like, everybody just got in trouble for that, right? And so I'd be curious to see, is that like, what do they call them? Well, I mean, obviously a fail or whatever like that, but I'm okay with that. He ended up, he wasn't with me this year anyway, I guess to say, you know what I mean? I wasn't, it wasn't mine to pick or decide or purchase, because as I mentioned, I did do that last year when he was Deadpool. So it's not like he was mine to pick, but I'd sure just be curious, you know what I mean? Are you allowed to dress your kid up like a character that's black? Like, is that okay? You know what I mean? Because if everybody gets in trouble like Jimmy Kimmel for dressing up like Chris Rock or whatever it is, how far does that go? Is your child now? You know what I mean? Because like I was like, I'm not even going to dance the line. I'm not even interested in finding out. I'm not even interested in being the person out there trying to describe it. Well, it's his favorite character. This is his favorite video game. This is you know what I mean? Like, anyway, I bet I made a huge mistake and probably just applied something that is overkill in the first place. But I don't know. Then it just ends up being misimplied. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what people do. And also about the YouTube, you know what I mean? Like, do you allow your kids to watch YouTube? Do you think that's crazy to keep them off of it? Like, I was like, dude, I totally understand. But again, now it's like, I almost feel like until I set up his account, I open his tablet, and he doesn't know that I know how like history works and all that stuff. So for instance, I will find, that he's gone to YouTube on the web browser, and that's where it's eventually like, I was just like, I'm just going to set up his account. He's just going to have an account, and he's going to go in there, because like I said, he's going in there through the web browser anyway. He's not stupid, and so I go in there and I look at the history, and I can see that he's been in YouTube. So I'd just be curious, do other people allow their children just to I mean, clearly free reign, I think, is silly. And I told his mom that a long time ago, like I said, while I wasn't doing it. But now it's to the point where I couldn't figure out the adult account, so he has a children's account. He's supposed to be able to get on. He's amazing. He's just using it right now, like for making his Christmas list. Like he has, he pulls up the waffle, and so he's using docs, and he's going in there and making his Christmas list, which it's the cutest thing in the entire world. Like, and this, it's not a big deal, but like for instance, last year he would have to be like every time he found something, he'd be like, "Dad, will you write this down for me? Dad, will you put this on my Christmas list?" But like now, he literally, he has the pin set up on his little Chromebook, and he can sign into his Chromebook, and he has his docs set up, and he's got his Christmas list going, and so he's amazing. He's got that all set up now. So for instance, he is using the other apps and the other things available, and he's doing them in just a way that's completely appropriate. But I'd just be interested to see, you know what I mean? Some people may be, 1 hour a day, or maybe there's a limit or something like that. But oh yeah, especially like the tablet, he would play that all day long if I let him. I'm certain. And I turned off the notifications because I think it's crazy. Because one day I even heard one go off, and I was like, you don't have to answer that, dude. I was like, you don't have to respond to the tablet. And he was like, no, maybe they gave me a reward. And I was like, this is fucking crazy. So like literally the notifications come in on the tablet, and he literally responds to the tablet. Like, you know how sometimes your phone goes off and you're like, give me a break, like stop. And then especially if you like, I turned all these ones off, but if I go to it and it's something that's not important, like it's not an email, it's not a text, it's not a call, it's not something that actually matters, I can't stand that. Like back in the day, I remember 50 times a day Facebook would message me like, are you out of your mind? I mean, that was a different phone and that was years ago, but my point in saying that is I did that for my son's tablet because I was like, this is crazy. So all these apps that he downloaded, they literally will just notifications just all day long, and everybody's probably like, duh, dude. But anyway, I'd just be curious, what do other people do? Do you just let free reign? Do you not give a hoot that they're given the that's funny. I've cussed so many times, and then I all of a sudden I censor shit and I say hoot. I sound like my mother. That's ridiculous. It's super embarrassing, but I don't think she'll care. She used to, when I was a kid, she used to fart really loud, and she would go toot, and it reminded me of that because I said hoot, and it reminded me of her, and then that, of course, further reminded me of her. I know that's really embarrassing. I guess not for me, but for my mom. It's okay. She'd be okay with it. She likes that kind of stuff. When you yeah, yeah, with the discipline, I'm just curious to see what everybody else does. Like, I frequently, I'll feel terrible. For instance, I'll think maybe I overreacted. I'll rub my nose, so I'm probably lying. I'm like, no, I guess my thought in saying is like, sometimes I'm just like, dude, did I overreact? Like, did I make a mistake of, should I have been softer and maybe said like, okay, that wasn't the right thing to do, but let's take a couple minutes off and regroup or something like that. But like, sometimes I'll just be like, it's a week. I'll be like, you just lost your PlayStation for a week. I'll be like, you can't get back on this. And then of course, after like 3 days when he's behaving and I can tell, I'm like, he almost seems like he's holding his tongue in some situation where it's like, he could literally, if he was being himself, he probably would have sassed back, but I'm like, oh shit, he still doesn't have his PlayStation back. So he's, you know what I mean? Oh, you motherfucker. Just like I said, unfortunately, my camera just turned off. I don't know. It was 30 odd minutes at that point. Like I said, last time it seemed like it was right after 30 minutes. So at least I guess I gave you a warning. I don't know. I was probably in mid-sentence talking. I'm not going to check right now and see where it was at. So unfortunately, I just know I was talking about punishing my kids. I was talking about how I'd be curious to see how other people do it. I was just saying that I have to basically compete in some senses, because if I'm the negative side, if like he knows, hey, every time I go to my dad's, I have these really harsh rules and I don't get to do anything, and then the whole time he just can't wait to go back to his mom's to play PlayStation and get on YouTube and get on his tablet, I don't feel like it's a level playing field. So I I do cave oftentimes. I should say every time. I mean, this is the only things I've talked about. I guess I'm recapping all the times I've caved where it's like I would have maybe done something different. But even in some of the situations I mentioned, like I said, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing because I maybe learned something about, say, a show that I wouldn't have allowed him to look at, or again, we now get to play the PlayStation together sometimes, and that's a lot of fun, especially like Minecraft and stuff like that. For somebody that I like to organize stuff, so for some reason being able to just like organize the blocks and move them around exactly how you want, however you want, is a lot of fun. But yeah, I just sometimes I feel like I overreact with him, like when I take away the PlayStation and maybe the amount of days that I do it. Maybe he did something wrong and I could have just taken it away for a small period of time, but I end up taking it away for, say, a week, and then it's 3 days later and I cave again. I guess that would be the congruent part of this story here, is that again I cave and I'm like, hey, you can have your stuff back. You know what I mean? I don't do it like that. I kind of try to do it more subtly because for some reason it probably just like hurts my ego in some way or another, because I never want to trash my word with my son. And people, even my sister, like everybody I've talked to has said that's so stupid. Like, for instance, well, it was before COVID, right? And so like I had told him for years, of course it was before COVID because he was younger. I told him, I was like, when you're 6, I'll take you to Disney World. And who would have thought that year, so that was 2019, that's when COVID hit and everything. So it was like, now travel is completely different. Everything has changed, and so I ended up doing it anyway. But my point in saying that is because I was like, I don't want to break my word. Like it broke my heart when my grandma, and I'm probably just being a baby, but my grandma would tell me stuff, and then she wouldn't do it. And it's like now I just see it's like something that every parent does. Like I said, I talked to my sister about it, and she was like, no, I'd have just been like, the world changed, things are different, we're not doing that anymore. You know what I mean? But I was like, I can't just that makes me liar. That makes me a liar. That means when I said that this was going to happen, I was lying. And I was like, again, then my mom, like so many people, I just feel like over time they'll tell you something, and then if they do the wrong thing, that stood out when I was a child. So I have made this ridiculous effort to never lie to him. Like I don't want, if I say something, I want to follow through on it, or I just don't say something, so I just it sucks, I guess, in those scenarios where I know I overreacted, but then I guess maybe that's where it's just like, I don't know, I guess I just feel like I'm being hypocritical, because it's like, how can I say I'm not going to say anything that's not true, and then I tell you can't keep, you're not going to be able to touch your stuff for a week, and then I give it back to you in 3 days. I'm like, how? I feel like it trashes my word just as much as, say, letting him down on something would. And so I don't know. It just is hard to make that decision sometimes, but yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, you don't know. All kinds of stuff, and you can only take, I don't know. I think you find out after a while. I think everybody knows this. Nobody knows what they're doing half the time, so you can't even like ask somebody, and then you'll ask somebody what they do, and you're like, oh, yeah, like this one gal, and I'm not to say she's wrong. My point in just saying that is everybody parents differently, so that's why I'm curious of the different kind of things that other people do, and how they take care of that. But I, like met this gal that said she makes her kid run. And, my only fear of that is I don't want him to hate physical activity. I don't want him to, because how sometimes like you go so far against what your parents try to force you to do, that if I'm like, okay, every time you do something wrong, you're doing push-ups, or every time you do something wrong, you're doing jumping jacks, or every time, like I said, in this gal's case, her kid does something wrong, she makes him go run laps, whether it's outside the house or around the neighborhood or wherever it is. And I was like, the last thing I want is him to have a negative connotation in his head about physical activity, because that's just the last thing I want. I was like, I want him to eventually see me taking care of myself and my health, and then he'll just want to follow suit. I don't want it to be related to punishment at all, which again, that's why I'm saying everybody does things differently. And so it's like, for sure, I mean, nobody is asking me, and nobody ever will. But it was interesting that we were comparing I guess, strategies that day. But I would just say the easiest thing to punish somebody, I guess, geez Louise, I say somebody, I mean a kid. The easiest way to punish your child is obviously taking away, for instance, if you were a new parent, and again, nobody's asking me, and I don't think they're gonna. But I just, taking away his favorite things is so easy. It's certainly the most effective thing. Again, it's almost scary the way he responds, in the sense that, like, he's got almost a drug addict's response, where it's like he's lost something. But I respond stupid to stuff. Like I respond stupid to the stupid. Like that. You know what I was realizing the other day? Which what's funny? I can actually probably carry this into another thought. But I make an unacceptable face when I drink coffee. Like I have to really, really try, and still I'm somehow concerned that I'm going to burn my mouth. Like if I'm drinking a hot coffee, I make this duck face that is just 100% unacceptable. So yeah, I guess having a negative response to your favorite thing taken away is probably, better than having a awful face when you're drinking one of your favorite beverages. It's that fear. Like I have to really try to just make like a normal face, and even then the eyebrows go up, right? So it's like then I'm just look like a fool anytime I try to drink a hot beverage. I don't know what that is. I'd be interested to see what it is. But how did I say? Oh, because I was in a meeting when I was realizing that I make a really retarded face. Ooh, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. That I make a terrible face when I'm drinking coffee. But that's another thing. I'd be really curious to see what people think about meetings. So the lucky thing for me is, like, right now, again, while we're construction, so like we have like one meeting a week, and there's only one meeting ever. And they established this meeting before the National Rifle Association existed. So it's been longstanding for so long that it's just they will never change it. And it's just what happens. And so we go every week at least once. But like I've been in other jobs where, like, for instance, I've worked at like many different hotels for many different brands, and the amount of meetings that they have in a day is just absolutely absurd. And so, for instance, it doesn't matter and nobody cares, but like when I got to a point of management when I was forced to have meetings every single day that were unnecessary, it just killed me. Like, not only is it demoralizing to me, to the person that's trying to lead you, but it's to everybody else. Like, hey, I know you were in the middle of a task and you were working really hard, but can you stop what you were doing? Stop the rhythm that you've been into, come down, listen to nothing that I have to say for 5 minutes, and then go back to what you were doing. And it was like the option was not for me to not be able to undo it. So point being, now, with the one meeting, it's not that bad. But when it's in these situations where you just have like, because we've had the meeting forever, we've always had the meeting, so now we're going to still have the meeting. I just was like, I read this thing, and it could be the worst thing that I ever read, or it could be one of the most helpful things that I've ever experienced. But it was, if you can cover it in an email, you don't need to have the meeting. Because then somebody can just, when they're in the bathroom, when they're in traffic, stopped and they can't move, and they're literally just stuck, not moving, or waiting for an appointment, or all those situations in our day where we have opportunities to wait and we literally have time to kill. Like in my situation, if I'm running to pick up my kid, there's always a few seconds before he comes to me, or before he, if I'm just waiting in the car, like say at a babysitter's, or he doesn't really have a babysitter's, but like that situation my mom's, and I went inside, so that doesn't really apply. But my point in saying that is like everybody has these situations through their day where you have just like a couple minutes. And so it's like, in my opinion, if you can send somebody an email and you can just say, like, at the time that you have available, here's the information that I needed to pass along. There's almost never a time that I need to meet with you and talk with you. Like, it's like, I understand training, and it's like training, you pretty much have to be there, because in order to show somebody new, if you try to put that in words, which unfortunately I found out the hard way, it almost always comes across negative, because I guess even constructive criticism is criticism, right? So it's like, if you're reading that from somebody else, so easy for it to come off as negative. But I guess truth be told is oftentimes, like I said, training, I can see where you can definitely benefit from being in person, and there's no reason to avoid having a meeting with somebody face to face. But I'd be curious to see what other people do about that, because I know that so many different jobs I've had, and I don't know if it's just the hotel business, but just as an example, I worked at a full service hotel, and we had to have, in our department, we had to have a meeting, and then we had to go have a meeting with everybody. And in that meeting, all we did is say what we were going to do for the day. Half the time, nobody would do what they said they were going to do in that meeting. They'd be the next day saying what happened the day prior that wasn't allowing them to do what they said they were going to do in the meeting yesterday. So they're going to do the stuff they said they were going to do. You know what I mean? That would just happen over and over again. This happened yesterday, so I wasn't able to do this, so now I'm going to do that. So it's just like, again, nobody needed to gather. If I spent 8 hours there, why am I spending an hour and a half in meetings talking to people? And people say, well, you need communication and stuff like that. And that's just like, again, like in this situation where I work, I think they literally had this meeting in place before computers. Okay, maybe not before the internet. For sure before the internet. I'm almost certain that this meeting has been in place before the internet. So for instance, they're never going to stop it. That's just how it works. We have the meeting on this day, but I don't know. Like I said, when I was in that situation, and again, if it's training, you got to do training. You got to have training. People got to know what they're doing wrong and how they can correct it and how we can all work together. And I just think too many times, and especially and this is the thing, this is actually almost a problem. I was going to say it's in a job where I get paid by the hour. It's in a job where I'm getting paid by the hour. And you know what that means? You don't give a fuck. You don't give a fuck that you're sitting in a meeting, because you know why? I get paid for this 90 minutes, whether I'm working my ass off on my computer cleaning a task or whether I'm listening to nonsense every day. So you know why? So we listen to nonsense, where it's just like, if you're not in a job where you get paid by the hour, you realize, hey, I can get this done in like way less time. I don't need to be here for 8 hours. But then there's people sitting there like, well, I watch baseball, or like, I'm on YouTube. Like, why are you fucking here? Shouldn't you be producing revenue? Shouldn't you be trying to make money, at least for the company? Like, that's why I'm like, especially when it's at a company and everybody's just gathered, I just don't see any logic in that whatsoever. But I don't know. That's probably why. It's funny. The sun has got to have some sort of effect on my face, because it almost literally seems like it just got darker. And the only thing that happened is the sun went behind a cloud. But that's crazy. And now I feel like I'm in the dark. I feel like I'm literally in the dark right now. That's perfect insanity. So yeah, I guess there's windows around me, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's nice to have natural light, but the inconsistencies of it, I was going to say, I need to change that to unreliability, but there is actually a word, inconsistencies. That's silly. It literally just got darker in here. I wonder if it'll be noticeable, but anyway, I don't know. I just be curious if anybody else is like that, where like, if you can cover it in a meeting, if you can cover it in an email, excuse me, there's no reason to have the meeting. And so it's like, wow, I don't even think I can say that. I should probably not try to say that again. That was really tough for me to get that out. You know what's funny? I noticed that like for years, I was watching this nasty video the other day where, well, people have probably seen it. It's that one. It's like that girl does the Subway Secrets or whatever, and she shows like the tuna, right? And she's got that big, nasty, disgusting tuna thing. And I was just curious, like, if, because I have so much tuna in my fridge. So in 2019, at the end of the year, near what was like the fall, it was September 26th, but that doesn't matter. I broke my foot, right? I broke my heel bone in 3 places. And so I had read somewhere, and I don't know if it's true or not, but somebody said that you can heal better if you have fish in your system, or like for something about having fish in your system allows you to heal better. So whether that's true or not, I ran with it like it was the Bible, dude. And that's not to express my stance on religion. It's just to say I took it in stone, or I cemented it into my my path to recover. And I heard that bones get better with fish, so I started having some tuna. So I'm just curious, if do other people like eat tuna? Because I one time, and this is the biggest baby thing in the world, and I'm sure anybody else, because like I even heard somebody telling a story the other day where they said they caught a fish and they pulled so many bones out of their mouth and it just wasn't even like a big deal. It was actually Cam Haynes. He was talking. It was probably on, who knows, probably Joe's podcast or something like that. But point being, he was saying like when it's a fish, like a trout that you caught by yourself, you're pulling the bones out of your mouth and you don't even care because what that means to you. And so again, somebody like that would listen to what I'm saying and just think, what a piece of shit. But I pulled one of those processed, disgusting tuna bags and I found a bone in it. And maybe it wasn't a bone and I never even told anybody about it, because so often, like when I was a kid and I would say that, like if we were eating ground beef or we're having some sort of meat and I get something that's clearly a bone in my mouth or something that my teeth can't get through, which if my teeth can't get through it, okay, so it's not a bone, so it's gristle or whatever the fuck they call it, or whatever it was been called for years. So I normally don't even say anything, but point being, I pulled this bone out. I don't know about you, but my appetite is ruined. So for sure, I'm throwing away whatever is there, because there's no way that I can possibly get over putting something in my mouth that I just found and it's like a sharp ass bone, right? Like a tiny, like sharp, skinny, nasty bone. So like, of course I'm not finishing this, but then on top of that, I have so much that I never finish. So I remember I saw that video and I was like, gosh, that does kind of sound good, but I would make it like so disgusting. It was like, probably there's no way it was healthy. It was probably the worst thing ever. I would take like some ridiculous amount of mayonnaise and then a bunch of salt and pepper and then mustard. And then I would throw the thing in there and then I would eat it with like crackers, which like, I swear, and I probably said this last time, but like, to me, carbs, and it's not carbs in general, I shouldn't say that. I'll have a cracker, or I'll have a Cheez-It, or I'll have a pretzel. Like, for instance, something that maybe I'll put into my son's lunch, or that I'll give my son for a snack. You know, sometimes I give him cheese and crackers, or sometimes I give him like pretzels and pepperoni, or something like that. You know, you're like, that's disgusting. I can't believe you feed your kid that. But point being, sometimes I sneak one and I'll eat one. It literally tastes like paper, and I don't know what that is. Like I have my taste. I can taste other things, but sometimes I put like a cracker or a chip or something like that in my mouth, and it literally just tastes like paper. And so I'm just curious to see if that's how it is for everybody else. Does everybody else have like a paper nothing taste when they eat like a cracker or something like that? But back in the day, dude, I used to love some tuna with those crackers, but I haven't been able to get over it since then. You know, but at the same time, I think I still try to get like people for years, so like for forever, and I don't know if I've said this before, but people would tell me, do not eat fish oil. They're like, it's the most disgusting thing you could ever do. Every time I ever ingested it, the entire day, I was burping up fish. I couldn't stand it. It was the most disgusting thing ever. So I forever stayed away from fish oil. I was like, I hate fish. I don't want that. I just eat tuna because, again, I cover it in so much mayonnaise and mustard and eat it with crackers that I can barely taste that it's even there. And I just eat it because I heard that it was better for your bones to try to heal. So now I just take like, but then like one day I was like, I was actually listening to Jason Ellis talk, and Jason Ellis said, yeah, but you're not me. Like somebody said something, they were like, you know, you shouldn't do this. And he's like, yeah, but I'm not you. You know, I thought, I know it sounds so stupid, but that rang so true with me that I was like, wait a minute, that's exactly right. So anyway, point being, I was like, amongst many other things, I was like, I'm going to start having fish oil. I was like, I'm going to try fish oil. I was like, how do I know that what they said was the worst thing ever? And I've never one day in my entire life ever burped up fish oil. Never, ever. I first started by getting those big, nasty jars, and I don't know why I say nasty, just because, again, I don't like fish. So it's those big, huge ones that they sell for like nothing. It's like $11, and I would take like 2 in the morning and 2 at night, and I don't even know how much was in them. But now I just take those, it's like, I think it's krill oil amongst other things, but point being, I just take like a multivitamin packet. It's actually, it's from On It, but the point being, it's got every morning and night or sometime throughout the day, I get some sort of krill oil. I think it's twice a day, to be honest, but I looked it up, and I guess krill oil is even better than fish oil. And not to mention, like, I heard somebody else talk about, I shouldn't say somebody else, I heard Dr. Rhonda Patrick talking about it like a long time later, and she was mentioning, I don't even remember what they are, but like they're those 3-letter words, like what is it, like BPA and BHA or whatever. Now I feel stupid, I have to look it up. I have to look up what are the 3-letter words that are in, like, they're in supposed to be in like fish oil. It's like BPA or something. BPA, fish oil. What is it? Oh, it's DPA, DHA, EPA. That's what it is. It's EPA, EPA, EPA. But anyway, my point in saying that is like they even say the krill oil is supposed to be better than fish oil. So one, you have that, but then it says it's one of the several omega-3 fatty acids. It's found in cold water fish such as salmon. It's also found in fish oil supplements, along with DHA. So yeah, those are the 2 things. So I know I sounded really stupid just saying it was the 3-letter stuff. But for instance, later on, I had heard Dr. Rhonda Patrick talking about EPA and DHA, and both of those are actually found in that supplement that I take. So it's literally like the most amazing supplement packet that I've ever had. But the only reason I'm even saying that is I stopped eating the tuna, felt like I still needed to get some fish stuff, heard Jason Ellis say like, well, that's not me, and never once in my life burped up fish. Sometimes my breath smells like fish, and I don't know why, and I think, well, it's probably because you take a fish supplement twice a day, but I don't know. That's just where I'm like curious to see what other people do. Do you just pound tuna? And then it's like also that other stuff, like if you've seen where it's like they talk about how gross the oceans are and how filled with disgusting stuff. And I know they say that the fish and things like that are like have mercury reduced or whatever, but how much can you really take out, right? It's funny. I noticed that the sun comes back out, so I'm like a gremlin right now. I'm like changing with the, no, that's a stupid thing to say. That was a dumb thing to say. I was just trying to say that like I know that my look is changing as the sun comes in and out. I don't even know what it wasn't even sun. I think it was like fucking water. So I'm a dumbass. For some reason I thought it was something after. That was just a dumb thing to say. I'm not going to cut it out because it was dumb, but it is what it is. Yeah. My son's funny, man. He asked me the other day, it was just the weirdest would you rather. I guess they like to play would you rather at school. Like when I was at school, we would just, I don't know, we had this game where we like to try to race cars, which sounds like the stupidest thing, but now I realized more why it was possible because they were driving through a school zone. So they were actually driving really, really slow. But for some reason, one of our favorite things to do is like you would be able to see the car coming way down the road. And once you could see it in your eyes, if you were able to run from one end of the fence all the way to the other end of the fence before it got to the other end of the fence, basically the finish line, you would win. And like everybody, if you couldn't, you'd try to jump off in like holes and stuff. And it was supposed to be where like, you were like hiding out or saving yourself in a bunker or whatever. But those are crazy that I have that memory from so long ago. That's definitely elementary school. But my point in saying that is he's in elementary school and he has where they play Would You Rather, and he comes home and he gets these just the most silly Would You Rather things. And it's probably not that silly. People with kids are probably like, no, my kid asks me questions just like that. But I had to write it down because I don't remember exactly what it was. But he's like, would you rather be a clone or would you rather be more annoying? And I was like, dude. Because obviously that implies that I'm annoying. So immediately I'm like, thanks. Like I know that's always what I say, but it's just because I don't really know how to respond except with sarcasm. I guess when somebody, it's like he's a kid, so he's taking a dig on me. But what am I gonna do? Like, you know what I mean? Are we gonna put the gloves on? Like. Not that that's how I solve my issues. I've never done that. I shouldn't act like that's how I think I even shared a story last time about how I got my face smashed the one time I tried to stand up for myself. So anyway, no, that's not going to be what I would tell him to do. But my point in saying that is, I don't know what my point was. I don't guess I had one. That's okay. Oh, yeah, he was asking me if I would rather be it's funny, I have it written down here. So it's like, he asked me if I would rather be a clone or if I'd rather be more annoying. And I figured the answer is obvious, right? Like, you would want to be a clone, wouldn't you? And then I was like, why would you choose anything else? And he said, if you're a clone, how do you know which one you are? He's like, because after a while, if you keep seeing all these other yous, how do you know you're the you? And I was like, okay. It's very confusing, but you're right. you wouldn't know. But I was like, why would I want to be more annoying? You know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine why that would be a good thing. But I guess I was thinking, like, I guess technically, if you were looking for like attention, being annoying may be exactly what you'd want, right? Because being annoying means you can people want you to turn off, right? Like, they want to shut you off. They want you to go away. They want you to stop. So like, right? So it's like, if you're annoying, people want to get rid of you. So I don't know. I guess it's like you are, at least you would know you have their attention, because they can't want to get rid of you if you're not in their attention. So that's where it's like, I don't know. I guess that'd be the one positive thing, is like, in my opinion, where I was like, I guess if you wanted to try to find, why would you want to be more annoying? You know what I mean? He's just saying he doesn't want to be a clone, but I don't know. I think the some aspects were like in, what is it, the Minions movie, where the guy makes a clone of himself and then the clones help him so he can work harder. So he's got like somebody that's exactly like him that can help him do things. I guess until the one of them kills all of them and then they die. But yeah, other than that, that would be where I would think that would be the coolest. So I'd be curious to see. I wonder what other people think. Like, one, do your kids, or do you play Would You Rather? Because we played that as a drinking game. I think it was more of like it was more of a drinking game that we played, rather than so much of a like elementary school game. But it's funny, he comes up with the funniest stuff. I'm gonna start writing them down, because I think they're good. I think it's like creative stuff that you can't just come up with, because like kids just think of the weirdest stuff. Like, even, I don't know, like they call each other tragic. Like, they're like, you're tragic, and I'm like, I mean, I don't know, I guess, like, if you know what I mean, if somebody was like, oh, that's tragic, and then you were like, you're tragic, but still, it's not like that good. But he is in second grade, so the burns don't have to be high level. And some people would say that burn comedy in general is hack. So what are you gonna do? He's actually, it's funny, he's got this point. I'm gonna say this, and then I think I'm just gonna wrap it up, because I want to see. He's got an appointment going in to figure out what his teeth are, and it's like one of those situations where you don't want to say. And I thought a dumb thing, and I don't care to not share it, because it is what it is. But you know what my real thought was, is like, I was like, hey, someday, if he ever wanted to, which, you know what I mean, because like, technically your parents can't really know you, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, when he's my age, I'm going to be an old piece of shit. And I know people are in better condition now than they say were for a really long time. But he's not going to say know me when I was younger. You know what I mean? Like, I remember my mom, and I remember things about my childhood, but I remember so little. And about who she really is, I probably knew very little. And, there's some things you just can't share with your kids. So the reason I say that is I was hoping that maybe one day he might be able to watch these videos, you know what I mean, and see, and like, if he ever just wanted to, he could learn more about his dad, and he could find out more about me, because sometimes I feel like there's some things you just can't share with your kids, but probably for the better, because you know what I mean, they need to grow up innocently and not know everything right off the bat. And I even say there's some of that, like, I'll never share a war story with him, so I guess maybe that's where I have this outlet where I can share things like that. Like, and I don't mean like actual combat, that's a stupid thing to say, I'm not trying to say that, but they used to call him, like, I don't know why I'm mentioning this. I think I mentioned it last time, but for some reason I spent 12 weeks, 12 days. That really shortened. That really was a possible, my mind trying to exaggerate, because I know it's literally nothing. But I spent 12 days in juvie when I was younger as a kid, and that was enough to let me know I never want to spend time in the system. It is the worst thing in the world. And even the guy said, and I shouldn't have this in my memory bank even, but I remember as I was leaving, the guy, I was like, I'm never, ever coming back here. And the guy was like, everybody says that. And I was like, fucking, thank God I never, ever went back. But why am I saying that? I don't know what it is. What I thought that was worth sharing. But anyway, he's getting his teeth taken care of. That's one thing I know. So I'm curious to see. Like I said, it's not one of those situations where you can say, I don't think I said this, but you can't really say I told you so. So for instance, for years and years and years, you know what I mean? It's like I do make him brush his teeth twice a day. In the morning, he's got to brush his teeth, and at night, he's got to brush his teeth. Almost every time, and I do tell him this, all the toothpaste is in the sink. So like for instance, I think somehow it like falls in between his gums or maybe on the other side of his teeth under his tongue, and then he brushes his teeth so that the toothbrush is going on his teeth and the toothbrush is moving around, but the toothpaste is never in between the brush and the teeth, because somehow when he spits it, all the whole chunk, like literally exactly what it was, falls into the sink. And at first I thought he was just like he was putting too much on his brush or whatever, and so some of it was falling in there. But then I'll even put it on his brush and like watch him, and then it's just what comes out. So I tried to tell him that, but it's like it's tough to say, hey, when you're going in there and brushing your teeth, and most of the time he fights me on it where he's like, I don't want to do it yet, or we can wait, or he's just not ready to basically brush his teeth yet. He still will go do it. And so it's tough to judge him and say like, hey man, you didn't brush your teeth well enough when, he at least went and did it. And it's like, I need to appreciate that. And what I used to do is I would brush him after, but then it's like, that's ridiculous. I can't, every time he brushes his teeth shitty and then I brush him good. So point being, for years I've tried to tell him, but I'm not up his ass about it because I do appreciate the effort that he's making. So I haven't really said, oh yeah, and originally I was saying I hope maybe one day he can watch these and find out more about me. And so it'd almost be like if I said it to him, but I don't feel that way because it'd be like if his choice, and I don't think he'll want to, so who cares? That was a cool thought that I had, and that's why I said it was weird if I should share it, but I was going to share it anyway. But that would be where my insecurity from it came. And now I don't remember what I was talking about because I got insecure. And yeah, he just needs to take care of his teeth. And he went to the dentist, and so he found out. He got x-rays, and his teeth are terrible, and they want us to go to a pediatric dentist, and he needs to get a bid for work that needs to be done as soon as possible. And so it's just like, it's one of those situations where I don't want to say I told you so. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean no good. It doesn't help at all. But I wish he would have listened. And it's like, if you would have listened to me, maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. But it's all good. Everybody makes mistakes. I actually had a situation where I had my teeth. I've had a lot of situations with my teeth. Actually, I won't even bore everybody about it. But like, I went back. Basically, I'd left after high school and stuff. I stopped getting regular cleanings, and then I went back years later, and I had 16 cavities. And so then they gave me that. I had to split it into 4 sessions because I couldn't just pay for that much tooth work because I don't have insurance now. I didn't have insurance then. He does, which is good. That's one wonderful thing about his mother. His mother has great insurance. She works for the Postal Service, and they have fantastic insurance. And so it's so nice that he's able to get that taken care of with some insurance. But I almost forgot about that. I don't know if they help, though. Gosh, I hope they help. That's great. But anyway, he's going to have some serious work. But like I said, it's like, and I even told him that. I was like, you know what, man, it's don't get down on yourself, because I had the same thing happen, and I was way older. I wasn't 7 years old, you know what I mean? Where very little is his responsibility. And that's where I say, like, I've told him, but am I pushing real super hard? No. So I'd be interested to see what people do there. You know what I mean? Do you brush it? Like, are you both brushing it every time? They brush it once terribly, then you brush it once good. But yeah, he's got a lot of work that needs to be done. We haven't seen that number yet, but I'm curious to see what it's going to be. But I did 100% forget that his mom has insurance. So that's cool. I'm never used to having that. So that'll be great, just in the sense that I have had it a few times. I shouldn't say I've never had it. I've had it a few times, and it really helps. It's really nice, especially if you get x-rays or something like that. Yeah, it's nice to have that. But anyway, yeah, and then the other thing I was thinking about is, like, I had my wisdom teeth, but everybody has to get that because, yeah, like of course I'm an idiot. And like I've mentioned before, I used to smoke. And so, of course, like, the doctor tells you, like, hey, you can't smoke. You don't want to do that. You're going to get what's called dry sockets. And I was like, bullshit, get out of here. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. And so I smoked after I got my wisdom teeth removed, and I definitely got dry sockets. And I just remember that was bad. I don't even remember what it was. He told me it was going to happen, and then it happened. I forgot what it is. Nobody cares. Why am I looking it up? Dry sockets, wisdom teeth. I forgot what it is. Dry sockets. Dry socket can occur 3 to 4 days after an adult tooth is removed. The blood clot should form after the removal is dislodged and dissolved before the wound heals, exposing underlying bone and nerves. So I exposed the underlying bone and nerves, right, because I was sucking it out. So that's where I sucked out all the shit that was covering it. So yeah, that's where I say, and I even told him, that's funny. I told you I got windows, right? Look at that ridiculous on my face there. That's not even cool. Look at that. That is ridiculous. That's okay. I'm out of here anyway. But, yeah, I just wanted to let him know, like, you're not the only person in the world that has made a mistake about their teeth. And, I've made lots of mistakes. So both the dry sockets when I got my wisdom teeth removed and exposing that, as I just found out, the bone and nerve, and then, getting all those cavities. But, these windows are putting a rainbow on my face, and, that's enough listening to me talk about my mouth anyway. So I appreciate everybody that listened. I hope you guys have a wonderful time wherever you're headed, and I hope the rest of your day is fantastic, and I look forward to chatting with you next time. Thanks. Bye, guys.